Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I am Southern Belle 74, and this is When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. We're going to discuss situations that happen when you go on vacation. Let's get into the very first story.
We're going to begin this half hour now with those allegations from a Wisconsin family who believe their daughter died after drinking tainted alcohol at a resort in Mexico. We're also now hearing of another American couple who suspect they were drugged or served tainted alcohol at a different Mexican resort. ABC's Gio Benitez is here with a closer look. Good morning, Gio.
George, good morning to you. It was the family vacation that turned into a family tragedy. After just 2 hours in Playa del Carmen this January, 20-year-old Abby Connor and her 23-year-old brother Austin ended up unconscious, face down in the resort pool. Abby died just days later. Now this morning, more families are speaking out with their Mexican vacation stories. It was at the Iberostar Paraíso Resort in Playa del Carmen where Abby Connor was found floating in a pool and her brother got a concussion. He doesn't remember what happened and there were reportedly no cameras. But this morning their family questioning if tainted alcohol at the resort could have contributed to the tragedy. And now other American families are coming forward.
I thought I was dying.
Jamie and Rick Valerie stayed at another resort in 2015. The couple telling the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel they both blacked out after a few drinks from the resort's beach bar.
I thought I was dying because I couldn't get out of whatever state of mind I was in. You couldn't wake up. I remember thinking, how are my 6 kids going to find out? And what's going to happen to them?
They say the hotel ignored their complaints. They thought they were drugged.
My hand's broken. And she's just like, oh, no, that doesn't happen here. We've never had anything like that go on.
Responding to Abby Connor's death, the Iberostar's parent company telling the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, we only purchase sealed bottles that satisfy all standards required by the designated regulatory authorities. We are deeply saddened by this incident and reiterate our deepest sympathies and condolences to the family.
I believe the resorts are trying to hide the fact that the dangers exist.
Maureen Webster created the website Mexico Vacation Awareness about the potential risks when traveling to these resorts after her 22-year-old son Nolan's unconscious body was pulled from a waist-deep resort pool and he later died. She says a nurse tried to help her son, but the hotel doctor pulled him away, saying he was just drunk, which Webster denies.
All the cases that I've received on my website, the resorts are quick to blame the guests. I promised I'm not stopping until something changes.
Webster says she started the website around the same time TripAdvisor, a travel site used by nearly 400 million visitors each month, refused to publish her reviews, saying it did not meet requirements. TripAdvisor telling ABC News, our guidelines state that every review must be based on a first-hand experience and relevant to other travelers. It's important that anyone who suspects foul play or illegal activity contact the local authorities. But the Valeries this morning say no review will convince them to return to Mexico.
There is physical and emotional consequences that will never be able to leave us.
And we should tell you, the State Department's latest travel notice on travel to Mexico makes no mention of concern for vacationers at all-inclusive resorts. Meanwhile, the family of Abby Connor told us overnight many people have reached out to them with their own stories, that their greatest hope is that together they will finally get answers and help keep this from happening again.
Yeah, we should hope so. Okay, Gio, thanks very much. Let's talk now.
Okay, guys, we're going to move into our next story. This one concerns a family out of Minnesota that saved up all year long for vacation and it turned into a complete nightmare.
Speaking of other things trending on social media, this had a lot of our viewers talking yesterday. A Minnesota family's dream vacation to Costa Rica pretty much ruined because a little boy on that family trip broke his femur. Yeah, not something you want to run into. They are now stuck there for weeks on end. Here's their story.
It was a planned 2-week dream vacation to Costa Rica for Emmy Lopez and her family.
I've told my husband for 5 years that I wanted to go. It just hasn't worked out. So we finally have saved up and planned for this trip.
She, her husband, and 2 sons arrived at the tropical destination last Tuesday. And come Wednesday, everything took a turn for the worse.
He was holding his leg and he just said, owie, owie, owie. He wouldn't talk and he was shaking and shaking.
Lopez's 3-year-old son, Axel, had fallen and broken his leg. He was rushed to the hospital where the family waited 6 hours for an operation.
These doctors that are asking me, what do you want to do? And I specifically asked, I said, will he be able to travel with this cast? Yep, no problem, no problem.
But there is a problem. Axel is unable to travel for 6 to 8 weeks. All he can do is lie flat for 24 hours a day. Unable to fly a commercial airline, Lopez said she called the U.S. Embassy. They suggested an air ambulance to fly Axel home, which is around $42,000. Unfortunately, their insurance company not going to cover the costs.
As a mom, it's been really hard because my kids are my everything.
Could you imagine? That
No.
is just a nightmare for families because,
I
of
can't.
course, it's another added cost. Now, we shared this story yesterday, and a lot of comments already pouring in. You can see them now scrolling at the bottom of your screen. So the big question, what's next for the Lopez family? Well, they're waiting it out. Fortunately, they're staying with the host family that they met 10 years ago when they first went to Costa Rica. But, of course, they're not going to work. The bills are piling up. They had to pay for that emergency surgery, and they're stuck there now. So they do have a GoFundMe page, hoping to bring Axel home soon. And we have a link to that GoFundMe page at care11.com. So far, I think they've raised about $17,000.
Wow, people stepped up. It really makes you think twice about the precautions you take when you travel, especially with children.
Okay, guys, our next story comes from a couple who go to the Dominican Republic on vacation. They leave, they're happy, they're healthy, but they end up dead. This story made me cringe. So I just wanted to put a disclaimer out there. If you're easily triggered, you may not want to listen to this next story.
Now to that mysterious death in paradise. 2 American tourists found dead in their hotel room in the Dominican Republic on the day they were scheduled to check out. ABC's Paula Ferris is here with the story. Good morning, Paula.
And Michael, good morning to you. This couple was sharing photos on social media, in love, having the time of their lives in the Dominican, saying that they didn't want to come home. And tragically, they won't be. This morning, new questions are emerging after a Maryland couple was discovered dead at a luxury Dominican resort. These Facebook photos show 49-year-old Cynthia Day and her fiancé, 63-year-old Nathaniel Holmes, who'd been vacationing here at the Bahia Principe Resort, where they had been for nearly a week. Nathaniel writes on Facebook, "I don't want to come home." They were expected to check out last Thursday, and that's when they were discovered. The Dominican Republic National Police tell us that an autopsy showed the couple experienced respiratory failure and pulmonary edema, or excess fluid in the lungs. They also noted that inside the room of the couple were several bottles of medicine used to treat high blood pressure. But Holmes' daughter tells NBC,
"It shouldn't have never happened."
The country is now facing questions about safety for tourists who stay at these resorts. It comes just months after an American tourist, Tammy Lawrence, says she was brutally attacked by a man in another Dominican resort. She spoke to ABC station WPVI last week.
He just plowed into my back. And I just remember that grunt that he made when he hit me. It's like in my nightmares. He, at that point, started choking me, strangling me.
Day and Holmes are the second American couple to die in the Dominican Republic since March, and there are growing concerns over how local authorities are handling these suspicious deaths. Congress has asked the FBI to investigate the death of a New York couple after they were reportedly killed in a late-night car crash en route to the airport from their resort. As for Cynthia and Nathaniel, there are reportedly no signs of violence in the room. The autopsies concluded respiratory failure, but they are awaiting toxicology results. But Michael, for all these families involved, they want answers as to how the local authorities in the DR are handling these investigations.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel.
Okay, guys, we're going to go to the last story. This is another vacation gone wrong.
Last September, a Wisconsin couple celebrating their 10th wedding anniversary set out for what was supposed to be the honeymoon they never had. Instead, it turned into a brush with death. Watch this.
It's just supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime trip.
But for Corey Sorum and his wife Heidi, it was nothing of the sort.
We never were able to do a honeymoon. And because of that, we wanted to save up and finally have that one trip.
It was their 10th wedding anniversary. 5 nights at an all-inclusive resort in Mexico. Seemed like the perfect way to celebrate.
It was gorgeous. We got to our room, unpacked, decided we wanted to change, go down to the pool.
After a drink and a couple of shots, the Sorums went back to the hotel to get ready for dinner. That's when their heavenly trip turned into hell.
I remember Heidi saying that she was going to take a shower, and I sat down on the couch, and that's all I remember. I woke up looking around. I had no idea where she was.
Corey found Heidi passed out on the bathroom floor.
I woke her up saying, "What are you doing?" I thought we were going to dinner. I sat back down on the couch, and I have no idea how long it was. I woke up again, looking around.
Once again, Corey says Heidi was nowhere to be found. He looked around for her, but she was gone. Then he stepped out onto the balcony.
And I looked down and I saw her legs. So I ran down the steps, and then that's where I found her, unconscious, bloody, from her mouth and her head.
He screamed for help, and the resort doctor called 911. Corey says the hospital wanted $4,000 paid up front before Heidi could get stitches and an x-ray. The Sorums paid for her treatment and headed home to Wisconsin 2 days later. In Mexico, doctors said Heidi had a mild brain trauma, but back home she learned her condition was more serious.
They could tell there was something not right, so they had taken me back for a CAT scan.
Turns out Heidi had a fractured skull and bruising on her brain. She slowly healed, and the Sorums tried to put the nightmare behind them. But how Heidi wound up outside their room remained a mystery.
I just thought it was a freak accident, you know, at the time.
And then, 9 months later, they came across an article by Raquel Rutledge in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Her initial report was on the mysterious death of a young woman, only 4 miles away from the hotel the Sorums stayed at. That woman, too, blacked out. In fact, the Journal-Sentinel reported it heard from over 100 travelers from the U.S. and Canada who say they had gone to Mexico and blacked out after drinking small to moderate amounts of alcohol.
For what we had and for how I was feeling, there's not a chance that it was normal.
The Mexican government doesn't deny it has had issues with alcohol safety.
Throughout the years, there have been problems with tainted alcohol. But the investigations that were conducted both by state and federal authorities in Quintana Roo have not found any problems with tainted alcohol.
In July, the U.S. State Department noted allegations of tainted alcohol on its Mexico webpage. But Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin wants the State Department to do more.
People have come out of the woodwork that experience similar symptoms, so you're realizing this isn't just an isolated incident or an isolated tragedy or tragedies. This is a pattern, and it's a very disturbing pattern.
For the Sorums, though, the aftershock of their ill-fated anniversary trip still lingers.
It makes me angry just knowing that we go there for a good time and other people had other intentions.
Corey and Heidi Sorum, they are here with us now. Welcome to you both. How terrifying, first of all, was this like a nice resort? Had you done research on it? You know, how did it look online?
We had researched it a lot. We had planned, we never went on an actual honeymoon, so we had made the decision that at our 10-year anniversary, we were going to go on a trip somewhere. We did a lot of research. In all honesty, we went back and forth because Corey wanted to go to Jamaica, and I kept pushing for Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I won the argument of it, but we did a lot of research looking at reviews from people.
And it all looked good?
It all looked great. We had family members that went there, too.
So when we talked in the setup piece about the fact that you saw her, you blacked out, you came to again, and you saw her 3 stories down, do you know whether you had fallen off the balcony?
There's no way where he found me, and I don't have much memory, but where he had found me, it wasn't possible for me to have fallen off of the balcony. we were on the 3rd floor, like he said, and had I fallen off the balcony, I probably wouldn't be here today because of it was all pavement rocks and everything. So
you still have no idea how you got that gash in your head. We saw the picture and all the stitches. To this moment, no clue.
From what Corey had said, when he had found me, my head, I was laying with my head on
leftover concrete from when they poured the sidewalk. It was real rough and jagged. And that's
So she could have gotten herself downstairs, potentially stumbled and fallen.
Possibly, yes.
Corey, what do you believe happened? Because you talk about how you guys had a couple, I mean, you're in Mexico, you have the fruity drink, you had a shot. How much alcohol had you consumed, and what do you believe happened?
We just had 2 of those fruity blended drinks at the swim-up pool, or at the swim-up bar. And then the bartender asked if we wanted a shot, so we did a Mexican flag shot, which he recommended, but also people that I worked with also said that it's a good drink, try it. So we did.
Did it taste funny?
It tasted terrible.
Tasted terrible, okay.
It was bad, it was really bad.
And well, with that, we thought the bartender had forgotten about us because he asked us if we wanted it. We said yeah. It took him 15 minutes to mix it, and we were watching. He would mix and then dump and then start mixing again and dump.
Concoction.
It was a whole concoction.
It's shocking that this happened to you and you didn't realize until months later that you were not the only one. In fact, that the number, as we put in that piece, is up to at least 100. And the person who broke that story is Raquel Rutledge. She's a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. She's been following the story. She's with us here in the audience. Raquel, thank you. So that we're seeing a pattern emerge here, a pattern. First of all, what is tainted alcohol?
Well, that's a great question because I think that term is used rather loosely. So tainted alcohol could be contaminated with industrial alcohol, with tequila flavored powder. It could also be deliberate drugging. It could be, there's multiple things going on that I've been hearing as I've talked to dozens and dozens of people.
In one of the other stories you broke that brought this couple together with another family was the story of this young woman, Abby Connor, who died. She died and was found at the bottom of a pool there after she had 5 shots in 2 hours. So she was drinking heavily. But the blood alcohol content was something like 2.5, which they say you'd have to drink 7 shots in 1 hour to reach that.
Right, 0.25.
Okay, so 0.25. So would tainted alcohol drive up your blood alcohol content?
Well, those studies that talked about, or the toxicology reports, they're questionable as it is, because as we learned later, the hospitals that a lot of folks are ending up in aren't necessarily trustworthy, and we've heard of stories of people have been extorted for huge sums of money, like Heidi and Corey.
Is that the game? I mean, if there's a game going on here, is that the game to get the money at the hospital or what?
That's too many stories have said that. So I mean, it's really hard to know exactly what's happening. And each case is a little bit different. There are some common threads for sure, but it's the toxicology reports of the 0.25. Blood alcohol aren't trustworthy because they're 2 people, and Abby's brother is 6'3", and she's small. And that's what struck me about a number of these stories. There's couples that are blacking out simultaneously, and you have a lot of petite women and big men, and they're drinking small amounts, or in the case of the Connors, quite a bit more. But still, for 2 people to go out in a resort pool where it's crowded and people are typically around, it just raises too many questions.
It just makes you wonder because the core industry in Mexico is tourism. They need American tourists and Canadian tourists, and this would not be in their interest. And they of course deny that it's happening as well. Would you go back? What would you say to people considering going?
Absolutely not. I wouldn't go back. We've had people that we don't even know reach out to us since Raquel did this story and ask. And everyone, anything can happen to you anywhere you go. But with what we went through at the hospital and everything, I wouldn't recommend it. There's so many other places in the world that I think you'd be treated better, safer. So.
We got to get you that second honeymoon.
Okay, guys. I'm going to, I did a special little video for those who like the BET Awards. And so I just wanted to give you guys a preview, and then we're going to close out. Okay, guys, have a great rest of your week, and thank you so much for tuning in.